everyone, and welcome to another edition of the vAuto podcast. I'm Lance Helgeson with vAuto, and I'll be your host for today's episode. Today's podcast will dig deep into a topic that's front and center for many dealers right now: how to get the right inventory that will sell in your market. And my guest today is a seasoned veteran of the car business who spent considerable time as a professional buyer for dealers across the country. And today, Bruce Harrington works as used car director for Paso Robles Chevrolet in Paso Robles, California. Bruce, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well. I understand you might be a little chillier than normal there in California. What's going on?
We have these winter storms coming through, so wearing a little vest today and trying to stay warm.
Yeah, and meantime, here in Chicago, it's been unseasonably warm with no snow. So little funky weather, I guess, going around. So I gave our listeners and viewers a little quick nugget about you, Bruce, but perhaps as a place to start, could you tell us a little bit about your career in the car business and what you're doing today at the Chevrolet store?
Well, you can tell from my hair color, I've been in the business since '79. Spent 20 plus years at two Toyota stores over in Bakersfield, California, doing used cars. Had an opportunity, was asked to help open a dealership back in Tennessee, which was an eye-opening experience being on the West Coast since '79. Left Tennessee and kind of got out of the business for a little bit and got a phone call from somebody I know over here, one of the owners and GMs. They have a total of 8 stores, 5 imports and 3 domestics.
Okay.
And asked what was going on in the used car business, and told him I'd been out of it for a few months. And long story short, he called back and said, I need some help getting cars. I can't get cars. And I know you were, acquiring cars back in Tennessee and then on the West Coast. And asked him what kind of appraising tool he used, and he told me it was Provision. I said, great, just give me a login and I'll look at the market. And long story short, after a couple of days, he called back up and said, would you mind acquiring cars for our 3 Chevy stores online?
Okay.
And it was a simple yes. 1, we have to have Provision. 2, we have to have Stockwave. And that was the key to it. And that started in March of 20. And it's been very successful for all 3 stores.
Why is that a price of entry or a preference of entry, I guess, to have that Provision Stockwave combination? Why are those 2 things must-haves for you?
Well, everybody, myself included, has always come back and said, hey, I need a pink polka dot VW convertible. And I would say, well, I'll go to the used car factory and get one. Well, Stockwave is the used car factory. I can simply dial in, go to vehicles, go to a buy. I have 63 different searches stored in Stockwave. And every morning I open up my used car. I call it my used car manufacturer or used car factory. And I systematically go through all of the vehicles that we currently need between the stores. And it's critical to do that. I would spend hours in the auction lanes, traveled to Arizona and Texas every other week from Bakersfield. And, land at 10 o'clock, get to the auction by 1, get thrown out at 6 o'clock and have to touch all these cars. I could simply, once I started using Stockwave, I would simply build a run list and be able to touch the 15, 20, maybe 60 cars I've looked at and not have to spend 5 hours walking the lanes. Take me an hour, hour and a half. And then more importantly, then it freed me up to be able to watch the lanes. I might have missed a car that comes through that somehow it didn't get through the system. Somehow it didn't get picked up. So it freed me up to be able to watch cars go through the lane, independent of what I have on my buy list.
Interesting. Let me drill into a couple points you made there, Bruce. So your buy list, if I followed you correctly, you're buying for 3 stores, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And so how many cars are you acquiring on average? And I know things are a little wonky now, but what's your monthly average of cars that from the auctions you're acquiring?
Probably around 110.
Okay.
Not just through auction, but through Stockway, through Avis, through Hertz. Looking at the cars and then reaching out to my Avis or Hertz rep. But
Okay.
about
Okay.
110.
Have you guys, are you tapping the private party seller stuff that's in there too? Or is that something that's not really part of your purview?
No, we signed up with ICO and it's been a big success.
Okay.
So we're hitting the ICO part of it. But truthfully, on the private party side, no, it's strictly been in lanes through the rental companies, open lane. Currently, I'm in Dallas in 3 lanes. Need to pick up some trucks.
Okay. Okay. And you mentioned run lists. So let's go back to, I understand a bit about how Stockwave and Provision work together, that you set up a strategy, you get your saved searches based on the cars that you need, and it feeds you. So how does that process of getting your buy list together today compare to maybe pre-Stockwave when you did it a different way before?
Well, pre-Stockwave before was you walked the auctions. Literally, I was one of those guys that didn't really get into the online stuff in the very beginning. So I would spend, fly over to Metro, spend 3 hours touching those cars, writing them down on my list, going back to the hotel, booking the cars out, looking at the cars, where I wanted to be. The next day it was previewing Odessa and Phoenix, and the next day it was previewing Mannheim and Phoenix. And you would spend 3 full days doing something that literally today I can do in an hour and a half. I've got the vehicles I need in my searches this morning, and I just systematically go through them, whether it's to sell today, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, be it Texas, Vegas, LA, Golden State this afternoon. I simply put them in my buy list and mark them for a run in my watch on Mannheim. And my watch tells me that I've got a run coming up, and Velocity tells me that I've got a car coming up in lane.
Okay. Okay. Now, with respect to buying online, so you were a guy, you touched the cars, you physically looked at them, smelled them. How do you gain the confidence today buying online that in fact this car is what you think it is?
I think the CRs, more importantly than anything, are getting better, much better than what they were in the past. We look at stuff that's a 3.5 CR or better. And being able to define the mileage and what you're looking for, take a Traverse. If I'm looking for 21 Traverses, turn rate on that's 34 days. A 22 turn rate is 109 days. Which car do I want to go after? It's mathematics. The numbers don't lie. So I can quickly, instead of looking at a 22 and scanning it, I look at it online and I find out it's got 109 days supply for me. Not interested. Narrow it down to 2021s, and I can pick out what I want.
So you're buying based on how fast you think you can turn it. Am I reading you correctly there?
Yeah, the used car business has always been on turn.
Yeah.
If you turn your inventory 7, 8, 9 times, you're going to make more money than if you're turning it 4 times. That investment costs money every day it sits out on that lot. You're paying whether you have flooring or whether it's your own cash. That's money you're burning.
True. Now, I guess I want to go back to how you buy. Are you using proxy bids, or is it really more just having the knowledge? You get the alerts that, hey, I got to pay attention here, I'm on it, and you're watching one-to-one?
I get the alerts. When I was back over in Bakersfield, I did a lot of proxies. We could afford to absorb 30 cars if we obtained them. If I do proxies here, I can't absorb 30 cars in 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. So it's just
Okay. And I guess if I might be reading too much between the lines, Bruce, but I know that, over the last couple of years, because of the way wholesale values were, wholesale supplies were, in terms of limited prices you had to pay, that some dealers kind of stepped back from the auction. And I guess I'm sensing that wasn't how you guys played. But I am curious, in that environment, how or how you feel comfortable that in that high cost era that you're buying cars with enough margin to make it work, for your dealership.
There's been a lot of heartburn everybody's experienced this last 2 or 3 years. The last 3 or 4 months have not been fun. With the market decline, it's starting to pick it back up. I think you have to look at the analytics that StockWave gives you, that Provision gives you. If you're buying the right car and it's turning properly, you can afford to pay more for that car. If you're buying the wrong car with a slow turn, it's going to hurt you. It's that simple. So it's I'm looking at in lane right now at glance, and what's the scarcity? What's the R book on it? What's the turn on it? It's a 5.0 and I need 3 of them. That's a car that I'm going to look at. It's a car that I can afford to pay a little bit more money for. So you're price sensitive if you're buying the wrong cars. You're not price sensitive if you're buying the right cars. If they're turning, they're going to turn.
But I guess, do you feel on the retail side that maybe I've understood that retail prices have been diminishing and maybe they're appreciating a little bit here in the last couple of weeks as we, head into March. But have you found that what you thought was okay the day you bought it, actually, because, there was maybe a softening in retail demand, that it wasn't okay? And if that happens, how do you deal with it?
Well, you break that golden rule that you don't turn the car, you don't get off of it in time. And we've got some pain and heartburn here. But reality is our market, if you take it in 21, what they call the Santa Barbara market, encompasses 75, 78 dealers. The market was down in 21, 14%. We were up 23%. In 22, the market was down 14%. And year over year, we were up an additional 14%. Some of that is attributed to the store's desire to not retract from the business.
Sure. Yep.
Their desire was to expand it. When, we have 4 Chevys, new cars sitting on the lot, and they were stocking 15, 20 used. We got our stocking up to 65 cars. You got to keep the lights on in the dealership. You're not going to do that walking the lane of an auction. You have to go to an online mode.
Understood. Have you guys eased off the acquisition pedal at all in the last couple? It sounds to me like maybe you've got some cars that you thought would have moved that haven't quite moved. Has that, allowing you or telling you to step back a little bit?
We withdrew a little bit for the last 6 weeks just to kind of see where the market was. But we're going to go back in with both hands. It's time to restock. I think the markets here are going to be strong. When I look at the other dealerships, not within our group, see a lot of empty spaces over there. So I think there's market to capture.
Okay. What would you say, Bruce, is the key challenge that StockWave helps you solve?
I said it, StockWave is my used car factory. When somebody comes in and says, I need a black Malibu under 30,000 miles in an LT, I simply go to my used car factory and I find it and I buy it. That is, to me, the beautiful thing of StockWave is it is your used car factory. If I need a dual rear wheel 3500 white for a rancher out here, I simply plug it in. It's one of my built-in searches, but Stockwave is the used car factory. It's the factory that we never had. Getting up at 5 in the morning and driving down to LADA and coming back home, and then getting up and driving to Fontana, and then getting up and driving to Riverside. There's 7 hours behind a windshield. I could spend an hour and a half in front of a computer screen and have my day built. It's that simple.
And what about with the time? So it sounds to me like you're way more efficient. What are you able to maybe spend your time on now? I think you mentioned it earlier that you can actually watch lanes more, but what about working with customers, managing your team, and that sort of thing? Do you have more time for that now too?
It especially pays off when it comes to walking the lot with the team, explaining what the car is, what the value of the car is, where the car came from. But more importantly, it's freed up a tremendous amount of time for me to be able to spend time with recon. I'm actually in the store 70–80% more than I ever was. When you're out Tuesday through Thursday, possibly Tuesday through Friday, you're getting a phone call about the recon. You're pulling a car off the rack. Let me look at it when I get back. I'm here. I'm 2 minutes from my shop. It's a huge advantage for us on the recon side.
Wonderful, wonderful. I got 2 more questions, Bruce. You mentioned the I think it was a King cab that truck that you were after. It made me wonder, and you also talked about the used car factory. On the new car side, in the last 2 years, we've seen a lot more pre-ordering, pre-selling, but it's kind of like selling out of your pipeline before the car even gets there. And I guess I'm wondering, how much has that kind of specific customer request driven how you're sourcing these days? Are you seeing more of that just because customers know what they want and maybe it's not readily available and you serve them? Is that just more of a rare case anymore?
No, yesterday I need to pick up a 12-pass van for a church.
Okay.
It happens on a daily basis. And, prior to having Stockwave, I would call my Avis rep or my Hertz rep up and, hey, Leon, I need a white 12-pass van under 30,000 miles. And I might be able to get one in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I had a request in the past where I needed 2 Siennas for the Boys and Girls Club. They had to be white, had to be under a certain amount of miles. Prior to Stockwave, it took me 3 months to acquire those 2 cars. Today, I can go in, I can look out 750 miles, I know what my transportation is, and I can acquire that car generally within a week.
Interesting. And is that, I know that was sort of a specific example there of 2 vans, but you mentioned 750 miles. What's your comfort level now in terms of how far away you'll buy compared to 2 years ago?
My searches start at 1,250 miles. Very comfortable with freight, very comfortable with central dispatch. So acquiring a car, the examples are small, but watching Dallas a couple of weeks ago, and the car happened to be in Nashville, and there wasn't a lot of bidders, and I think I bought the car right, and I landed it right, and freight was not a problem. It's a learning curve for some, but there's that expression, and I hope I'm not corny, but if you're ripe, you're rotten. If you're green, you're growing. And Stockwave is a growing experience every day, and I will also tell you this: I have benefited from the fact that I've got a great PM. He truly knows the car business. He truly has used the tool, and we chat frequently. He's just been an enormous help getting a guy like me into that. And it's made it very comfortable for me to acquire cars.
What would you list as maybe one key insight or lesson the PM, your performance manager, has given you that sticks, more than another?
Well, he's opened up my eyes to things, but the most important thing I would say is I will send him something I need in our next session. And he delivers on that. Might be uncomfortable here or there using the tool. And he's always coming up with a new way, building a search, for looking at after sale. Try this search. And it's, high bid in lane. Out of the 60 some odd searches, I'm going to say 10 or 12 of them are searches he built for us. And, over the weekend, you want to be high bid. So it's the communication with him is extremely important to me. The one thing I will say to anybody is if you sign up, you need to pay attention and you need to show up for your meetings with them. I think that's critical. If you're not going to use the tool, you're just stop. But, I got this pitched to me back in 16, I think, and was just starting with ProVision. And my Cox representative said, you need to look at Stockwave. I've known him for 15 years. And halfway through the demo, I didn't want to be rude and say stop. I was sold. Guy was selling me the used car factory we were all looking for. It really is that simple. And I didn't have to spend 6-7 hours every day looking through a windshield.
Yeah. One final question, Bruce. Now, if someone is, say, on the fence, or maybe even a doubter, when it comes to technology like Stockwave to help them source more effectively in the wholesale market, what piece of advice or point of view might you offer to that individual?
Well, I just recently had a Toyota store that I'm friends with the owners, and the GM called me up, same thing. And take the demo, have an open mind, pay attention. And I called from him the other day, and they were looking for a Supra, and he found one back in Minnesota. That's, again, an extreme thing. But if you don't take the demo and you don't really listen and pay attention to it, again, you have to have an open mind, but learn to use the tool. It's very helpful. It's productive. Take the demo. I mean, it's painless, and maybe you don't want to hear it, but you're on a 30-day. Try it for 90.
Yeah.
But dig in. Try it. You have nothing to lose. Nothing. You only have something to gain. If you can get that 1 or 2 cars that you've been looking for in a 2-minute search, why not try it?
It's a good perspective, Bruce. Thank you for sharing that. And thanks for taking time for us for the podcast today. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks, Bruce. And thanks to all of you watching and listening to the podcast. Until next time, stay well.